inside the numbers. A closer look at the nearly $500 billion measure the House is expected to consider. Ready to resume. The Chancellor of Austria sets a date for church services to reopen to the public. A step in faith. A Catholic university in the United States says it will ease the economic burden on students and families. And our common home. Pope Francis calls for the faithful to show a deeper love for planet Earth. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight, more than 835,000 people in the U.S. have been infected by the coronavirus. While 77,000 people have recovered, more than 45,000 people have died. And today, President Donald Trump took a moment to remember the victims. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Tracy, it was a moment for reflection. As the White House celebrated Earth Day, the president remembered those who've lost their lives to the coronavirus.
We continue to mourn the precious souls who have been lost, so sadly lost, and so unnecessarily lost. It should have been stopped, and it should have been stopped right where it started, and everyone knows where it started.
President Donald Trump uses an Earth Day event at the White House to talk about what's on everyone's mind, the battle against COVID-19.
A lot of states are in great shape, and they're starting to move it along.
The president praising progress against what he calls the invisible enemy.
We will begin to reopen our national parks and public lands for the American people to enjoy.
And Vice President Mike Pence ready to carry out the president's plans to reopen the nation.
I can assure the American people that we're going to work very closely with your governors every day to get America safely and responsibly back to work.
Coronavirus isn't the only conflict. Despite the global pandemic, Iran flexing its military muscle. President Trump tweeting, "I have instructed the United States Navy to shoot down and destroy any and all Iranian gunboats if they harass our ships at sea."
Oh, he's coming up.
The directive comes a week after the Navy reported close calls with a group of Iranian boats. Shortly before the president's tweet, Iran says it put its first military satellite into orbit. Experts described it as a secret space program. On the South Lawn, the president also said the beauty of springtime fills us with a peace and hope of renewal. And also tonight, the administration announcing plans to pay doctors and hospitals who care for uninsured COVID-19 patients. Those uninsured patients would not be responsible for the bill. Tracy?
White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. Thank you, Owen. On Capitol Hill, the interim emergency bill passed by the Senate includes expanded funding for small businesses as well as hospitals and money for coronavirus testing. But will it be enough to jumpstart the economy? Correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, even before the ink was dry in this latest coronavirus relief bill, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was on the Senate floor saying that Democrats are already working on Phase 4 legislation. Republicans that I spoke with say that they are concerned with the amount of debt that the country is incurring.
The bill as amended is passed.
And with that, 2 weeks of stalemate end.
At the core of our agreement is $320 billion more for the Paycheck Protection Program. This is even more money than we had first requested.
$321 billion now goes to the depleted Paycheck Protection Program, including $60 billion for smaller, unbanked businesses, $75 billion for hospitals, and $25 billion for testing, adding up to a whopping $483 billion bottom line.
What's another couple $100 billion? But realize the money desired is not money that we have saved for a rainy day. This money doesn't exist anywhere. It will be created or borrowed.
Republican Senator Rand Paul cautions the borrowing can't go on.
No amount of bailout dollars will stimulate an economy that is being strangled by quarantine. It is not a lack of money that plagues us, but a lack of commerce.
Still, Senator Chuck Schumer insists Democrats and the administration are pushing forward on another bill.
For anyone who thinks this is the last train out of the station, that is not even close to the case. And the Speaker and I will begin rolling up our sleeves and working on that big, broad COVID-4 very soon and very quickly.
Republican Senator Mike Braun tells me it's time for local governments to take the reins.
Let's do what's made this country great and get down to individuals, towns, counties, and states that drive the recovery.
And other Republicans are speaking out. Senator Mike Lee of Utah says that congressional recess needs to end, that everyone needs to come back to Capitol Hill and be able to debate these bills and be able to vote on record. Tracy?
Okay, thank you, Eric. Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting tonight. Spain is easing lockdown restrictions today, and the Prime Minister tells Parliament that Spain is, quote, moving in the right direction.
Estamos, señorías, en la buena dirección para poder acometer este proceso de desescalada cuando toque.
Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez spoke to a mostly empty parliament in Madrid earlier today. After harsh criticism for ordering all children to stay inside, the Prime Minister is now allowing kids under the age of 14 to go outside for the first time in 6 weeks. Lawmakers are considering a wider lifting of restrictions for later next month. In Iraq, shoppers are rushing to stock up on food before the holy month of Ramadan starts tomorrow night. Shoppers packed into a market in Baghdad despite orders to maintain social distance. Some are worried about skyrocketing inflation. Shop owners say they had to raise prices to make up for lost business due to shutdowns. North Korea is staying silent about the health of leader Kim Jong-un, despite media reports that he had an operation. Kim has not appeared in public in weeks. Reportedly, the North Korean leader had heart surgery early last week, but it is not just his health that's a concern. His disappearance is raising questions about who is next in line to run the country. There's speculation that his younger sister, Kim Yo-jong, could be the next leader.
Wir haben am Wochenende erstmals
The Catholic Chancellor of Austria is lifting restrictions as there were less than 100 new infections last weekend. Churches can start celebrating Mass again starting May 15th, as long as everyone maintains social distancing. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz also says that Austria is going ahead with plans to open all shops at the beginning of May. Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, met with the heads of all the Vatican's departments today. The aim of the meeting was to discuss Phase 2 in the emergency plan for COVID-19. The Vatican says it will gradually reactivate ordinary services while maintaining the necessary health precautions to avoid infection. Fabrizio Mastrofini, media manager at the Pontifical Academy for Life, joins us now from Rome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you and welcome.
Fabrizio, what is the Pontifical Academy for Life's role in the Vatican's task force for COVID-19?
This new commission has the aim of developing analysis and reflections on the socio-economic and cultural challenges of the future and to propose guidelines to face them. I am speaking about the Commission announced a few days ago and established with the Department of Human Development, the Dicastery of Human Development. And the Pontifical Academy, the Academy for Life, is a part of one of the working groups. The working group is, in this case, in the fields of the environment, economy, health, policies, politics, and security. But on the subject of health and health policies, an initial contribution has already been made by the Academy with a document. This document is entitled Pandemic and Universal Brotherhood, published by the Academy on March 30. And then this document is the first contribution about this important topic of a pandemic.
Fabrizio, how important is it for the Church to speak out on ethical issues relating to coronavirus treatments, including the threat of euthanasia?
Yes, absolutely. Your question is very, very important because this pandemic emergency causes an imbalance between patients and resources. For instance, we have had in these last weeks more sick people than the available intensive care unit, with the very, very difficult decision about who cares and who abandon. This is the reason because you are speaking about euthanasia, but behind this topic, the fundamental aspect concerns health policies. How can we take care of people? How to cure them properly? Where and how to find economic resources for this? Then the Catholic Church emphasizes the fundamental value of the person, of all people. And this is the reason because nobody should be left alone. Nobody should be abandoned. Politicians are responsible for translating these principles into concrete and real strategies. But we as believers in the God revealed by Jesus Christ, we have the duty to ask to the physicians if they act to protect the value of the human life or they act to protect the accuracy of protocols.
Oh, Fabrizio, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight. We really appreciate it. Fabrizio Mastrofini, Media Manager at the Pontifical Academy for Life. Thank you again.
Thank you, and good work for you.
Coming up, Pope Francis says everything we need to know about God's love can be found by looking at the crucifix. And Franciscan University of Steubenville makes an announcement about its tuition for the fall semester. Pope Francis says everything we need to know about how much God loves us can be found by looking at the crucifix.
Io cammino nella luce o cammino nelle tenebre?
At his daily mass at the Vatican, the Holy Father says Christ's death on the cross is the highest expression of God's love because we see Christ in all of his wounds and defeat. Pope Francis says that we can use that love to live in the light of God, even though it is easier to live in the darkness of sin. A Catholic university announces a step in faith to ease the economic burden caused by the COVID-19 pandemic on its students and families. Franciscan University of Steubenville plans to cover the remainder of tuition costs after scholarships and grants have been applied for all incoming full-time undergraduate students enrolled in its on-campus programs for the fall 2020 semester. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about the program is Father Dave Pivonka, president of the Franciscan University of Steubenville. Father Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be back with you again.
Oh, Father, I just have to say, what an amazing gift to students and families. It's really remarkable. What message are you hoping to send to them, and why do it now?
Well, I think the message we want to send to them is, A, that we care for them, and we realize that we find ourselves in a time like none other in history before, and we want to be able to do something for them. I've asked my faculty and staff as we were trying to discern how it is the Lord was going to lead us through this. I said, we need to make a step in faith. Whatever this looks like, we need to make a step in faith. And as we began to pray and discern, somebody suggested a model that's looked much like we're doing now, and that is providing this tuition assistance and the take care of their, as well as the graduate students as well, or excuse me, the present students as well. And it just seemed to be a step that the Lord was inviting us to take. This is a big step for us, but it's also a big step for new students to be leaving home for the first time, to be coming to a place that they've never lived before, starting college. There's so much fear and anxiety. We wanted to do something to help aid them in that step. So we're making a step in faith, and we're just really excited that the young people are going to make that same step in faith with us.
Oh, Father, I love that step in faith. Can we talk a little bit more about that and a little bit more about what you mean by that and the role that faith and prayer did have in that decision? You talked a little bit about that.
Well, it's really important is that one of the things when I was working with our staff is I said, it's not just, this can't just be about crunching numbers. It has to be, what does God want us to do? And we looked at all different scenarios, and we sensed when this first was suggested, we thought, okay, this is crazy. I mean, this couldn't be. And yet we prayed about it, and we just really felt that this was an offer that the Lord was inviting us to make. I took it up with our board of trustees, and they were amazed and they were so excited. They said, this is a wonderful way we can use some of our investments in our rainy day fund that we have in our endowment to help young people in a time that is just so anxious and frightening and nervous. This sounds like a wonderful step of faith for us as a university to make. Ultimately, at Franciscan University, we're going to discern what God wants us to do. It's not about what numbers necessarily say or what this group or that group says. We want to just be faithful, what it is that God asks us to do, and to be able to make a step in faith and do that. So we're really, I'm a little nervous, Peter walking on water, I'm a little nervous, but I just really, really am convinced this is what God wants us to do.
Father, can you talk quickly about exactly how all of this will work? Because obviously it's a financial obligation on your part.
It is. And that's one of the things that is part of the faith that the Lord is inviting us to. As you mentioned, all the incoming students, new students are going to get tuition free after their scholarships and grants. And then we have other programs for our returning students, but also some things for our graduate that allows them to go to graduate school for a semester and then also helps them come back for graduation. And what we're praying for is that people are excited about what we're doing and they want to support it. The reality is some families can afford to come back. It's not going to be a problem for them. So we have created a fund called the Step in Faith Fund that if people are interested and excited about helping us out with what we're doing and being a part of God's movement and God's grace, we're just inviting people to help us out. So we're really excited about what that's going to look like. If I could say just really quickly.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. Sure.
Great. Yeah, well, really quick, it's really precious. Yesterday, I got a letter from an 11-year-old boy, Jacob. And Jacob says, Dear Father Dave, my mom and dad are teaching me to be nice, and they're teaching me to do nice things with my money. So here's $10, and you can do whatever you want with this. Well, that's going to be the first $10 in our Step in Faith Fund, and we're just quite certain that God is going to multiply that. But it was just a beautiful story of a little guy trying to be nice.
Oh, I love that, Father Dave. You're making me cry. That's a wonderful story. Well, thank you so much, and God bless you for what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Tracy. God bless you.
Father Dave. God bless you, Father. Father Dave Pivonka, president of the Franciscan University of Steubenville. Many charitable organizations are working overtime to help those in need, providing food and shelter for the vulnerable all across the country. Correspondent Mark Iron shows us examples of Good Samaritans stepping up.
Serving those in need presents a new challenge. A higher demand for food can make a heavy lift for charitable organizations.
So we've had to get real creative about how we respond to the most vulnerable in our community.
Ben Broussard works with Catholic Charities of Acadiana. The Louisiana branch has created the 7-Day Staples Project, pairing local donors with local businesses.
We're going to then put together a 7-day supply of food for someone who is experiencing hunger, and we're going to have that food package delivered to their door.
In Los Angeles, the mission to serve homeless and low-income individuals is ramping up.
The need for our hunger relief services and our meal program and our pantry services is really greater than ever.
Marianne Kulikov, the executive director of the St. Francis Center, says the center's food pantry services are up 200%.
Since a lot of our partner agencies have had to close their doors or modify their services, they're not able to provide daily food like they have before. So now we actually are seeing a lot of referrals from those partner agencies.
In St. Petersburg, Florida, Catholic Charities is running a 100-tent emergency shelter for the homeless. And in southern Missouri, a crisis pregnancy center for homeless women remains open.
I applaud those who are on the front lines, those who are working in the social programs, in the shelters across our country and across the world. They are heroes.
A pandemic provides obstacles, but it's no time to stop. More are in need, and it's more than just shelter or food.
It isn't just a meal, but we're also serving hope, is providing those basic needs and providing them with dignity and respect.
That was Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. And a reminder, EWTN broadcasts Mass throughout the day. Mass airs at 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. We're also showing the Pope's daily Mass and other special programming throughout the day. We also have Eucharistic adoration from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on our website, EWTN.com. Up next, a look at the ethical concerns related to contact tracing during the coronavirus pandemic. And Pope Francis issues a call for unity on this Earth Day. As states begin to figure out ways to return to normal activity, contact tracing is being viewed as an important weapon in controlling the spread of COVID-19. But it is also raising larger privacy and ethical concerns. Joining me now on Skype to take a closer look at the ethical implications of all of this is Father Michael Rozier, Assistant Professor of Health Management and Policy in the College for Public Health and Social Justice at St. Louis University. Father, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. It's a pleasure to join you.
So contact tracing has been used in this country and also around the world as a way to stop people who may be unknowingly infected with a disease from spreading it. Can you talk about how this process typically works and how that information is usually collected?
Absolutely. So contact tracing is a cornerstone activity of public health, and it begins with somebody who is known to be infected with a contagious or communicable disease. And then we gather information either through interviews or technology to determine who have they been in contact with while they may have been infectious. Then we contact those people to let them know that they should either monitor their symptoms or quarantine, get the support that they need in an effort to stop the disease from spreading any further.
Father, from a health and public policy perspective, how could this data be used to help curb the spread of the coronavirus here in the U.S.?
Yeah, so when the infection is able to be identified and stopped before it's spreading to other people, what that allows us to do is to get ahead of the disease. So whenever we can identify people before they are symptomatic as potentially spreading the disease, we're able to stop the infection before it moves further through the community. And so we use these interviews and additional technology to help people raise their awareness that they may have been exposed, even though they may not have known that they came into contact with an infectious person.
I know that some people have suggested that smartphone technology can help with this tracking, and also that Google and Apple actually announced that they've been working together on software. Can you talk about maybe some of the privacy concerns associated with that? And is there anything that you find troubling about this type of tracking or tracing?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple ethical concerns that we have to keep in mind as we move into the phase of contact tracing. One, as you mentioned, is violations of privacy. So this is very sensitive information that we'll be gathering. And so we need to make sure that we are only using it for the public health purposes for which it is intended, and that we're transparent and accountable about who has this information, how they use it, and how a program is terminated after the intervention is complete. Some other ethical concerns that I think we need to be aware of is that whenever we give people information, we need to make sure that they have the necessary resources to act on that information. So we don't want to tell somebody that they might be infected and need to quarantine without making sure that we have the supportive resources in place to ensure that they can quarantine or isolate safely. And then, of course, when we do public health interventions, we're worried about the equity across different groups within our population. So we want to make sure that these kind of interventions don't just positively affect people who already have resources, who have access to health information, who have access to health services, but that it's equitably distributed so that the people who are most in need are the people who are able to benefit most from the kind of public health interventions that we'll be introducing on the other side of the peak of this epidemic curve.
Well, Father, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We really appreciate it. Father Michael Rozier, Assistant Professor of Health Management and Policy at St. Louis University. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And finally tonight, Pope Francis calls for a deeper love for the planet Earth on this 50th anniversary of Earth Day.
Che non c'è futuro per noi se distruggiamo l'ambiente che ci sostiene.
At his weekly talk with pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father says the coronavirus pandemic is teaching us we can only overcome global challenges by working together. And he says we must overcome our selfish impulses to care for the planet and the most vulnerable. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.